Good morning, South Shore Charter School students. I'm Bruce, this is Liza. We haven't seen you in a while, we miss you, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Right now we're out on a foggy, rainy day, and we're going to talk about plant parts today, but this rain is beautiful for the plants. It's in fact one of the needs of a plant. And I wonder if you can remember some of the other needs of a plant. What does the brown one represent, the brown bead on our necklace? And that represents, as you may have guessed, the soil, the earth that the plant needs. And then we also talked about the fog and the rain. All of that is taking place in the air that we breathe. What plants need is carbon dioxide. They breathe in that and give us the oxygen that we need as part of our air. So we'll talk about what part does that. Another thing, we already talked about the water, which is the blue bead. The one thing we can't see so much today, the yellow bead, is the sun. We'll talk about what plant part uses the sun to make energy. And what else are we missing, Liza?
We are missing room
yes.
for all of the plants to be able to stretch out and grow from small seedlings to big ones.
Or space. And I think we're going to talk about the different parts of a plant. Usually people think of only 4 main parts of the plant, but we're going to talk about 2 other ones. The 4 main ones that we usually think about are the roots, the stems, the leaves, and the flowers. But those flowers produce something else, which are seeds. And those seeds usually come as part of a fruit or a vegetable. So we're going to look at different plants and look at those parts, but we're going to also see which of those parts we can eat.
So we're going to start at the bottom of the plant for the 6 plant parts. And the bottom of the plant you actually can't see unless you go underground. You might have guessed it, it is the roots. What do the roots do when they're under there? Well, they help keep the plant anchored into the ground by spreading out and keeping it stable. But most importantly, they help get water and nutrients and things that the plant needs from inside the soil so that it can grow strong and continue to feed itself.
And those water and nutrients need to go somewhere, so they're going to move up from the roots and then up through the stem. And the stem is like a highway or a transport system that delivers all of that to the leaves and the flowers for further growth. And then those leaves are going to do something else that Liza will talk about that's going to come back down through that transport system that is the stem.
So the leaves are where the plant uses the sun to convert the sun's nice warm energy into energy that the plant can use for its own food. So that energy gets stored up in the plant so that it can use it to get stronger and continue to produce new plant parts. And you might notice that some of the leaves around us are changing this time of year. So that is because the plants have finished storing up what they need for now, and they're able to drop their leaves and stop making food to save some water.
And the other part about leaves is it's taking the sunlight, but the bottom of the leaf is actually breathing in the carbon dioxide, and the water that's coming up through the stem, all of that gets combined, and the heat from the sun and the light from the sun cooks that into the sugars that Liza was talking about. Finally, we get toward another part of the plant, which is the flower, and that's where reproduction happens, or where new plant life can be made. And that flower is there for a purpose of attracting pollinators that help move its pollen to other plants to make seeds and fruits for reproduction.
And fruit, the delicious part of the plant that you might have tried on different plants before, think strawberries, tomatoes, things like that, the seeds are usually inside of it. So maybe an animal will come along and eat that fruit, and that will be a way for the plant to be dispersed in a wider location. Once the animal poops it out at the end, you know what happens.
And there are also seeds that are in that fruit, or there are seeds that are within the flowers that, again, it either gets eaten and dropped out, or wind blows the seed to another place to be planted, or the seeds just drop out right below the plant as well, and water might help carry it somewhere else. So those are the 4, all the 6 main parts that we've talked about with a plant. Now we're going to take a look at some of the plants and identify those. As you might see, we're in the food pantry garden here. And Liza, I want you to kind of show what's going around on in the garden. Even though it's the middle or end of October, there's a lot growing here. A lot of lush green leaves. You can even see some flowers blossoming, some fruit. But we're gonna come back over here to past the stone, the ledge. We're gonna look at the Jerusalem artichoke, one of our native plants that grows here. Remember, it looks like a sunflower, like a small sunflower. And sometimes it's called a sunchoke. So, as you can see, this plant has the flower, which comes all the way up toward the top of the plant, and there are seeds that are growing in there just like a sunflower might have. And this flower, the petals, I believe, are actually edible as well. You can roast them. If we go down the flowers, you can see the leaves right here where the photosynthesis is going to be made. And then you come all the way down to the stem, and this is a really long stem, probably about, if you look at it, probably 15 feet tall, more like a tree. All the water and minerals and nutrients are traveling up and down the system that's within that stem. I mean that stem. And that, here we have the bottom of a stem, travels down to the roots. And you can see all the little root hairs here that help suck in or absorb the water and minerals. Now some of these are not actually roots, they're edible stems. They're underground parts of this stem where the sugar is stored, but also where new plants can be made. And these are called tubers. And this is some of the edible parts of the Jerusalem artichoke. And then, so here's a plant that's somewhat similar to a Jerusalem artichoke. Surprisingly, these plants are still doing well. This is a potato plant, and usually a lot of these plants would have died out by now. But this one's still nice and green. And so we see the leaves here. There are no flowers. The flowers have passed. Those usually are done by August. So they've already done their job, and so the plant will slowly start dying off. You see the leaves where the photosynthesis happens, the stem that comes down to the root system down here. And here's a root. Again, you can see the root hairs. But again, here's one of those underground stems with tubers, or the potatoes that we eat. So that's still part of this stem. And this is where excess food is stored, which you can eat. But it's also the beginning of another plant. And eventually, if you took a potato out, you might see the eyes of the plant, and that's of the potato, and that's where a new plant would grow from.
So here you might recognize a tomato plant. And as you can see, there are still some blossoms over here. So pollination is still happening for the last bumblebees that are out for the winter, and some of our honeybees that are too. And inside the tomato, let's see if we can open one up here. Inside the tomato, you'll see all of this yummy, fleshy goodness to eat, and also all of these seeds that could be either planted or eaten or saved for later. Yum.
And if you don't eat them, they'll fall to the ground and rot, and the seeds will plant themselves. And those we call volunteers.
We thank all of our volunteers, either person or plant. And over here, might seem like it's a little late in the season, but these squash blossoms are still ready to go. And the squash blossom is on the front, but if you look right behind it, you can see the beginning of the squash starting to form. This is going to grow bigger and bigger. So you see it getting a little farther along. See, this flower has gone by, but the fruit is still going strong. And there are still some little critters that are inside there. I think that might be a squash beetle. See if you can see. There it is.
And these flowers we can actually eat, right?
I believe we can.
Yeah, a lot of people fry them up or stuff them with things. So it's just both the squash, so the fruit and flower of this plant you can eat.
I would not want to eat the stem of this plant, however, because look at how prickly it is. Ouch, ouch. That would not be something good to gnaw on. And I wonder if that's because the plant wants to protect itself from predators that might eat it, like us.
So aside from the fruits that we usually eat of a plant, which some people consider vegetables, like the squash and tomato because they have the seeds inside them, and cucumbers are also fruits because they have the seeds inside of them, but and most people might think of them as vegetables, but they're really fruits. There are many other types of vegetables we eat, and some of those vegetables are the leaves. So any salads that you eat, the lettuces that are mixed in there are the edible leaves that we're eating. So over here we have a beautiful assortment of different leaves that we eat, different lettuces. And you can see some like really flat reddish ones and green ones. And then you have these nice frilly type salad lettuce leaves that we eat as well. But they all serve the same purpose other than being edible. They are the part of the plant, again, that is bringing in the sunlight, the carbon dioxide, and the water, and cooking it into something that gives food for the plant. And sometimes, we don't have any here right now, but there are those roots that we can eat where the food is stored, like carrots. And that's where all the excess starch, the sugars go, and that's why carrots have a little bit of sweetness to them. Over here is another edible leaf that we eat, which is chard. And most people would think this is a stem, but this is still part of the leaf. The stem is a little bit further down. So this entire thing is the leaf that we eat. And this is a much larger leaf than that. And sometimes, usually, you would pick this before it gets this big, because it's not going to taste as good as a smaller leaf of chard.
Now, if you were here during the middle of the summer, this field, which I call butterfly field, might have looked a lot different because it was full of flowers that were fully in bloom. Now, at the end of the season, there are still some flowers that are nicely in bloom, but you can see flowers at different stages of the plant's life cycle. These sunflowers over to my right are ready to be done growing, and inside the seed heads are all of the sunflower seeds that little pollinators had to go in and pollinate each flower to make the seeds inside. And there are now birds flying around getting the seeds because for them, that is a great snack with lots of energy stored up. So the birds are eating the sunflower seeds, then the birds will help spread more sunflowers and other flowers here that they are eating the seeds of wherever they are flying, and that helps the plant to spread so we don't have to do all the planting ourselves, and neither does the wind.
And we can eat the sunflower seeds too, right? And the flower, I've heard. That's another, you can roast the sunflower.
Oh yes, the actual sunflower head, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So many good ways to get a snack and to have some of the plant's energy be converted into energy for us. Over here is another plant that you can eat called calendula. Oh, looks like someone already took me up on my suggestion to eat it. But this is edible by humans too. In the spirit of using all of our senses down in the field, this very fuzzy plant feels very nice to touch and nice and soft. But if you take some of it apart, inside you will see another part of the plant, which are the amaranth seeds. Do you see all those little black seeds coming out of here? The seeds are spread through the green, and now this is the part that's going to make all new amaranth plants. Each one of these seeds could be an entire big plant like this.
And what do we use amaranth for?
We can use it for grain, for cereal type, ancient grains food, and for food for birds, etc.
So as you can see, plant parts take a lot of different forms, but they still serve the same purposes. Although certain plants, like the potato, their plant parts also serve other purposes, like the stem that grows underground to the tuber, where a new plant can be grown instead of using a seed.
We hope that learning a little bit more about the parts of the plant will help you understand how plants work and how they are similar and different to us and to other creatures that we are sharing our farm and garden with.
And we have a challenge for you as well. Since we looked at a lot of parts that we can eat, why don't you look around your kitchen or look in a grocery store flyer or somewhere else, look in the ingredients and find out what parts you eat and try to identify them. Until then, have a wonderful week, and we're going to leave you with a plant parts song to listen to. Bye!
Stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Root stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Root stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Root stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need.
So the plant in the ground, they gather up the water that falls around. And there's a root inside of me, because a carrot is a root that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. A stem is an elevator up from the ground. The water goes up and the sugar back down. And there's a stem inside of me, 'cause celery is a stem that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. The leaves are the kitchens where the food is done. The breathe the air, catch rays of the sun. And there's a leaf inside of me, 'cause lettuce is a leaf that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. Root, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. 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 That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. Flowers are dressed so colorfully to hold the pollen and attract the bees. And there's a flower inside of me, 'cause cauliflower's a flower that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. Fruit gets ripe, then it falls on down. It holds the seeds and it feeds the ground. And there's a fruit inside of me, 'cause an apple is a fruit that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. Seeds get buried in the earth. The cycle starts again with the new plant's birth. And there's seeds inside of me, 'cause sunflower is a seed that I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. Now you know what this whole world needs. There's roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. There's 6 plant parts inside of me, because a garden salad is what I eat. That's 6 parts, 6 parts, 6 plant parts that plants and people need. Roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds. Roots, stems.